The Gory Days are here to stay, the 80s horror show. Take a stroll down memory's lane, it's time to start the show.
The Gory Days, the Gory Days, the Gory Days,
The Gory Days.
Welcome to the Gory Days, the show where we take a stroll down memory lane to remember our favorite horror movies from the 1980s and early 1990s. Kyle Leone here, your host for another week, and what a week it is. If you haven't filed your taxes yet, get on that, because we're already 2 days into April, and May's just around the corner. Can't stop that month! If this is your first time listening, let me explain the format here on the Gory Days. Each week, my guest is an up-and-comer in the industry. No other industry calls it the industry. It feels kind of pompous, like when you go into sales, no one's like, oh, sales industry or lumber industry. There's no other industry that just calls it the biz or the industry. I think I like that. As an up-and-comer in the industry, we talk about their path, what they've done, what they're doing to give them a little signal boost, and then we dive headfirst into our horror movie of the week and just rip it to shreds. And oh my god, this week is no exception. Obviously, you've seen the title of this week's episode. The movie is Climax from 2018. It came out 5 weeks ago as of the release of this episode, so don't worry if you haven't had a chance to see it. That said, major spoilers ahead. If you haven't seen the movie, we're going to be tearing it apart and looking into everything inside and out. So go watch it, pause the podcast, and come back when you have, because it is a movie that you don't want to miss. But before we get into that, my guest today is an Australian screenwriter, director, and producer based in Los Angeles. She's also a playwright and writer, having been published in, among others, Thought Catalog, Vibewire, and Vertigo magazine. And this is her first time on this particular podcast. We'll find out if she's done any others. Her short film, Fitzgerald's Cult Following, which she wrote, directed, and produced, is currently making the film festival circuit. Please welcome to the show, Felicity Pickering.
Hi,
how you
doing? Good.
It's nice to have you here, from all the way from Australia.
Yes, I just flew in.
And boy, your arm's tired.
Yeah, they sure are.
This is your first time on the podcast, but we've met before. We met at the mentorship mixer at Candela La Brea. That was fun.
Yeah, it was an amazing event.
Yeah, I really appreciate it because I remember I was not having a good time. I had a really bad week and day, and I was just I didn't want to be there, and I remember hemming and hawing about whether I wanted to go, but I finally did, and you were the first person to walk up to me and engage me, and you were like, are you waiting for your mentor too? What was going through your head? Like, you just got there.
Yeah, no, I actually found out earlier my mentor couldn't make it, and I was like already in my car, waiting to go in, and I was like, okay, like, do I do this? Do I go home?
Yeah, like, what else do you do?
Yeah, it was kind of like the event was just to like kind of meet your mentor, and then I was like, oh, my mentor's not even going to be here. But it worked out like really well. Like, I met, I think it's Stephen Tolkien, whose parents did Lord of the Rings.
Was he there?
He was there. He was just like walking around, and I was like, hey.
Was he a mentor?
He was a mentor, and his mentor his mentee hadn't showed up. So.
Oh wow! Yeah. Wow, how can you not show up to meet your mentor when he's a Tolkien?
I know.
That's nuts. That's like if he was an R.R. Martin or something.
Yeah. So I was just like, okay, like yeah. So it worked out really well. It's like one of those things where, it's like hard coming to Hollywood, but you got to kind of like, hey, come out there and project confidence and positivity.
Well, sure. I feel like you kind of have a different perspective. You say coming to Hollywood, but you're not from here originally. You're not even from America. Where's home for you?
Sydney, Australia is my home.
Very cool.
I've been out here for about a year and a half. But I did actually live in Pittsburgh as a child for a little while, which was really random.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, I've got like no family connection to America. We just ended up coming here.
Okay.
I moved over here from Sydney with my now fiance Josh Zammit.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And
there
congratulations to you as well.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, listener of the Gory Days, I don't know if they know, but I'm engaged too. So congratulations to the two of us.
Yeah. But yes, so I moved out here and been trying to like figure out the scene and navigate it.
But you haven't been figuring it out in just that year's time. You've been working in Australia too. You're a published playwright.
Yeah, yes I am. I kind of like started being a playwright.
How did that start? Like, did you do high school drama tell me about it.
Yeah. Well, it was really just like, doing high school drama. Like drama was my big thing.
What plays were you in?
I was in Oliver.
Oh,
I was in
who were you?
Grease.
Who were you in Oliver?
I think I was just like a pauper boy.
Oh,
like,
okay.
I'm like not a very good
ensemble
singer.
stuff. Oh,
like,
okay.
Yeah. So I was like, and then also I was in this. I feel like my most like memorable performance was in like this. It was a play called Hating Alice and Ashley.
I've never heard of it.
And I was like the wacky art teacher, and I was like very young to be in like senior production, and they were like, you can be like this complete stoner like art teacher, and I like really found myself in that role.
That's crazy.
I like loved it.
And so did you always have an affinity for comedy then, or
yeah I think like as well it was like it was great going to my high school as well. I went to like an all girls school.
Cool.
That's like a bit weirder over here, I think. Whereas in Australia, it's quite common that you're like all girls school.
Well, the way when you said that, I immediately thought, like a Catholic school or something. But there's no religious hierarchy attached to it, or is there?
Yeah, my particular school was it was a Presbyterian school.
Okay.
But it was kind of like really good in terms of I got to be like play a lot of men and like do girls or men.
Yeah.
And like so then you kind of like you get a lot of comedic roles and stuff like that. You can kind of pick and choose. But I kind of realized when I was like in high school that what I really liked was directing and writing.
Okay.
Because I would so often like go into group projects, and then it would be like I always really loved the creepy stuff, and I really loved like making really dark like performance piece type things, and that kind of like made me go like, hey, maybe I want to be a director, maybe I want to be a writer,
because it's a little nicer than getting blood poured on you when you're on the other side of the camera.
Exactly, like,
or having to run around in your underwear and
and just having knives thrown at you and stuff like that.
God, some of the stuff these people put up with in these movies, like this one in particular,
my
it's insane.
God, yeah.
I mean, put up with it's a chance of a lifetime to be in an internationally released film.
Totally.
But still, it's like what it takes to be an actor for some of the, especially like student films. I'm sure you have a better perspective than I do of some of the things that get passed off as art in some of these circles and stuff.
Totally, yeah. It's crazy what you've got to find people to. If you have like a vision, you got to be like, okay, well, this is what I want. But then you got to think about the individual, what they actually have to go through to get that performance.
Yeah. So what was the point for you when you were writing, when you decided, I don't want to be an actor or singer anymore, I want to be on the other side writing and directing? What was the point where you decided like, oh, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to nurture this, and I'm going to submit things. I'm going to call myself a writer. Like, when did that happen for you?
Yeah. Well, I've got a little shout out to Australian Theatre for Young People. It's like a little kind of it's like meant to be for under 30-year-olds in Sydney, and it's like just underneath the Sydney Theatre Company, and it's a little theatre company that did so much for my career and does so much for so many Australians in their theatre career. And so like what they do is they had like writers, they have all these different writers programs. So I ended up doing a mentorship with them, which was like a year-long mentorship where I developed a play and like actually 2 plays, and then also they did this thing where it was like they did a residency where all these different, it was almost like, it felt a bit like a reality TV show where a group of young writers all get flown across Australia, all get flown to one little place in regional New South Wales, and you all have to write a monologue, and at the end of that week you present your monologue, and then a certain number of them get chosen to be on this stage performance. And then the stage performance is like published, and like people all around Australia then buy it for like their, final, like your high school drama thing. I guess like your SAT drama.
I don't know what you would call it. Your final project, I guess.
It's called HSC in Australia. But like,
cool.
So all these people do like these monologues, and like they sell them all around where it's like, oh, it's, monologues written for young people by young people.
I'm familiar with the versions that I've seen where, it's just a big tome of monologues that you can choose from all kinds of writers, both like David Mamet to student writers and things.
Yeah.
And so is the monologue that you're leading up to Facon?
It is.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But before I move there, is that something that you had to audition into somehow or submit some things, or did they reach out to you? How did you start in that program?
Yeah, I like submitted some writing, and then I got into it, and they're like, we're gonna pay for you to come out and spend a week with writers.
It's amazing.
And I felt like that to me completely. I think you actually asked me like, because I was like, oh, I'm a writer, and you're like, what? It's so good that to be just like, I'm a writer, and just like have that
to be able
sense.
to say that.
Yeah, and just to be like, hey, you know what? That's what I am. I'm not like an aspiring writer, or like, I think as well I still use emerging writer, but yeah, and so that through that program, like
An up and coming writer.
An up and coming writer, yeah, I got paid like $1,000, and as soon as I like had been paid, I was like, I'm a writer now.
That's it. That's right.
I was
yeah.
like, I'm not a bartender. I'm not this. I'm not that. I'm a writer now.
Yeah.
Like that's how I thought about it.
And I think that's very impressive. I don't know what you think of yourself, but I'm very impressed with what you've created in the time that you've been here. And how long has it been again? A year?
A year and a half now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so Facon, though, was written while you were in Australia. If you don't mind me asking, like, how old were you when you were submitting this and this was all happening? Like, you got submitted, you stayed there for a week, you wrote this.
Yeah, I think I probably...
You don't have to say if you don't want to. I realize how inappropriate the question I just asked is.
No. I was like, I'm just like trying to figure out what I was. I was probably like 23, 24 when that was all happening. And then it got made into a film probably when I was like... Yeah, I think it got made into a film when I was 24.
Okay. So, let's get into it. So, the original monologue is Facon that you wrote for this. And as a monologue, if for whatever reason people don't know, very different from what the short became. It's one person speaking to, it could be any number of people. So, I want to know who approached who to make the short film. You obviously had the very successful monologue. Someone came out of the woodwork and said, hey, I want to turn this into a short film. How'd it go?
Yeah, it's like so funny because some people warned me against doing this, but it's good. Someone just had like a call out in my university Facebook page being like, hey, I want a script. Like, does anyone have any writing? And then I messaged him and was like, hey, I've got some writing. I like chucked him a couple of scripts. And then he was like, what about this monologue that like you've got all this press on? And I was like, oh, okay. Like I never thought of it as a film, and so it was a really good process in terms of like I honestly thought it was going to be too high budget to make because it's like got a lot of meat in it, and like the way I envisioned it was like very expensive and very like surreal,
and a few locations.
Yeah, and quite a few locations. But anyway, through the process I learned a lot about adapting as well, which was kind of an experience that I hope will continue on in my life.
That must have been the greatest opportunity to adapt your own writing into a different medium. Yeah. Like to see not only how to improve on your initial product, but like where to fill in new information and where to expand the narrative. That must have been a great opportunity. And I assume you kept in contact with these people?
Yeah, definitely.
That's what it's all about, is finding collaborators and things. Like
totally.
The people in that house, do you still keep in contact? Is that like a going... cabal? I can't think of a better word.
If you mean the house in Facon?
Yeah.
That's my house.
Oh, I meant the house. I meant the house that you writers were in New South Wales. But
okay, gotcha.
But
because I was like,
that's a beautiful house.
I definitely go back there a lot.
You're talking about the house where the family has all the meat and stuff. That's your house.
That's my house.
Oh, that's a gorgeous house.
Sydney.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like pretty funny.
Are a lot of the actors like friends you know too, or did you like formally cast it?
Yeah, you know what? The lead, Jane Watt, she's
great.
She was amazing, and she's like killing it in Australia right now.
Okay, good.
I met her through like ATYP. I actually like went to one of their performances. I can't remember the name of it now, but I like approached her afterwards and was like, hey, would you be interested in like auditioning for a short film?
Wow.
So yeah, it was like, I think that, again, not to shout out ATYP like too much now, but like, it was such an amazing community. And even in LA, I've met so many people over here who are like, oh, like I came up through ATYP, and like, it's just kind of this really nice network that is now international. And I'm such a fan of like championing young writers and like public funding for like young people to get involved in the arts.
And it also seems like a fraternity sorority element where once you mention that and someone else knows what it is, then you have this shared experience.
Totally. Yeah. I feel like it's so much like that in Australia. And in LA, like in terms of like talking to other Australians, it's like so nice when someone like you see recognition.
Yeah.
When you're like, oh, I did this thing. And then they're like, oh,
I'm not alone.
I know what that is.
Yeah.
Like there's like this huge TV show called Home and Away and Neighbors. Have you ever heard of it?
Neighbors, I have. What's Home and Away, though?
Home and Away is essentially like, is exactly very similar to Home, like they're very similar things.
Okay.
But they're like big TV shows in Australia. And
comedies and that one like...
they're kind of like, they're soaps. They're like teen soaps.
Oh, okay.
But if you're like an actor who has been in either one of those, then like it's like for an Australian, it's like, oh, you're famous.
Oh,
but if you come over here and you're like, I was in Home and Away, it's like
no one knows.
Okay,
yeah.
like what was that?
You were involved in the theater scene in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still have a toe in the film scene in Australia?
I'd like to think I do.
When you go back?
yeah. Let's just say yes.
Because, you've worked in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Hollywood. That carries clout all over the world.
Well, I certainly hope so. No, yeah.
You're a paid writer. You have a short going around the festival circuit that we're going to get to in a second.
Yeah.
It's very impressive. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you for that. But yeah, no, it's, I'm going to actually go back in a couple of weeks to visit. And so it's
Your
really
family's still back there, right?
Yeah.
Do they support and understand what you're doing? Because it can be a risky life to jump into, but you've probably demonstrated that you're good at this point.
Oh, well, that's nice. So many compliments in this podcast. I'm just like, oh my God. I'm like, my head will explode. No, they're very supportive. Like, they're very excited about stuff. And I think that early on, like my parents, like, I was very much drawn to that kind of the performing arts kind of side of things, and we're kind of like, hey, if that's what you want to do. I was very lucky in terms of some people, when you come out of high school and you say, hey, I want to do a creative writing degree, it's like
yeah. Everyone wants to keep you safe. They want you to do the thing that worked for them, but the world isn't the same anymore. So
it comes from a nice place, but no, yeah, I was very lucky in terms of them being like, okay, you're going to do creative writing and stuff. Like, I think that my mom, growing up, my mom took me to a lot of theater and loved writers, and like she still loves going to writers festivals.
Does she write?
She does not write, but she's like such an avid, like she consumes so many more books than I do.
Oh, okay.
And like is a very learned lady.
An avid reader.
Such an avid reader. And like a big fan of just constantly learning. And I think that like writing has a big aspect of that, where it's like you're just, when you're writing a script, you get to like really deep dive and like do a lot of research in a topic that, it works with those kind of personalities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. So the short that's currently making the festival circuit, I wanted to ask, how much can we talk about this? Because I know that
Go for it.
Okay, all right.
I'm like, I don't mind.
Well, we already mentioned the title. It is Fitzgerald's cult following, and I'm...
Oh, it's Toni Fitzgerald.
Oh, it's Toni Fitzgerald? Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, sometimes the writing is like, you can't read it. So
well, I will get that clean this time. Oops.
Okay.
The short is called, forget it. Toni Fitzgerald's cult following. It is really funny, I gotta say. Like right off the bat, number one, the actress that you got to play Toni and the actress that you got to play Toni's mom are particularly fantastic. The older woman who plays her mom is so great, and I forgot
Marie McKillen.
Marie McKillen. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Marie, if I just got that wrong. But no, Marie is like so amazing. She was such a good sport about like being in my short film, because I was trying to cast it, and then she's actually a slam poet. She's like,
really?
She's not an actor by kind of like trade.
She's got that energy. I could see it.
I know, and I'd seen her in a couple of performances, and I'd always thought like she was just amazing. And then I actually, weirdly enough, like coming up to the film, I saw her at a bus stop like in central Sydney, and I was like, hi, like, so nice to see
you recognized her.
Yeah, and I was just like, this is so random, but would you ever be in like my short film? And like, it all came from there. She was amazing.
Felicity, where does this bravery come from? Like 2 or 3 times now, you've mentioned situations where you saw someone that you knew is high status and just walked up to them and said, hey, I love what you do. Would you be interested in being in my thing? How do you do that?
I think it's just, pure recklessness.
Like, are you nervous? Are you thinking, oh no, and pushing past that? Or are you're not even thinking about it? You don't even think about it.
I don't know. I guess it's kind of like, I think everyone's I think as well as artists are always flattered no matter what. Like,
okay.
I think that as well, it's like the same, if anyone came up to me and said, hey, I like your work, I'm like,
how could you ever get mad?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to be like, hey, you know what? Fuck you.
Yeah, there's no like
Am I
Eddie
allowed to
Murphy's.
swear
Yeah, of course you can fucking swear. No worries.
I was just like, wait a second. Like, is this like PG?
That was really cool though, how you made that like audible. I could see the gears going like, oh, here it comes. I'm getting to the swear word.
F-bomb.
What am I gonna do? And then you just went for it.
And then it just cuts to like me. I'm sorry, we had to excuse Felicity and her foul mouth out of here. Like,
we've had to end our episode a little early.
Yeah.
So tell us about like the impetus for this. It's a stand-up. Is that your world? Are you familiar with? Have you done stand-up before?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, and a lot of people.
Really hard.
Yeah, a lot of people are like, "Is this about you?" And I'm like, in some ways, but like,
well,
not.
write what you know. But
yeah, write what you know. It's actually really funny because the entire thing was kind of inspired by I was like a huge Friends fan when I was a teenager.
Oh, okay.
And I used to pass off the Friends jokes as my original jokes. And then I like made friends with this other person, and they were like, they knew Friends back to front.
Oh, no.
And I was like, oh shit. Like, and then I kind of like, I would watch Friends, and I like people would just thought in high school, they thought I was like funny because I would say all these like Chandler lines. And then like this other person was just like, oh, isn't that from Friends? Yeah. And I was just like, holy fuck.
Oh my God, that's your worst nightmare. Yeah, I've totally been in that situation.
I was like, 14 kind of or something like that. And I was just like, trying
I'm
to
the
be
funny one.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm trying to be really cool and funny all the time. And then I was just like, oh my God, I can't be around people who know like where I'm ripping my jokes from. And so essentially that's kind of like the impetus of like where this whole script came from.
Is like, what if I were to steal jokes in an environment where absolutely no one could tell, and how far I could get with that?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And just, that kind of thing where, the joy that you get from being like really funny and then like being scared that you're like, not that like I still steal jokes. Like obviously as I got older.
I feel like it's hard. It's impossible not to.
Yeah.
Everything is built on everything at this point. And like you can reference or homage something without even knowing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or just like when you say something that's obviously like to you, it's obviously a quote from a movie and then they laugh like a little too hard.
Yeah.
That's almost like the ethical thing of being like, should I tell them that was...
Actually, that was from I have to admit, that was told from
like,
this, yeah.
Can I just stop you there in your mid-laugh? Actually, I've got an admission.
I have to cite my sources here. Yeah, exactly.
But, this is the kind of stuff that comes up all the time and this, global, I don't know, information.
No, especially
world.
during like a developmental time of your life. Like when I was 12 to 14, I was absorbing a lot of homestarrunner.com things, this Flash animated show on the internet. And it was so small and niche, I knew no one was watching it. So I would steal constantly from it, knowing that no one would ever catch me about it. But I still would feel that in the background, like, what are you doing? You're lying.
Yeah.
You're a fraud.
You're a fraud. I maybe like shouldn't have chosen Friends to steal. Like, why? Like the most typical, most popular possible show I could have like tried to be.
So where does the cult come in though? Where did you get the idea to throw in this like really unique? There's a lot of like marketing. It looks like the cult has a life of its own. There's a thing that another compliment that I want to give is that this short has a world building that makes it feel like there's a world beyond the characters that are happening in the short, and it's only because of the commercial for the cult and the cult's presence and some of the establishing shots. Like whether or not that was intentional, it really does make the world feel larger than the short, and it makes the short feel that much more important. So how did that happen?
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it was I was kind of like planning to make it for like 2 years. And I was always like, oh, I'm going to do this. And then I was like, I don't have enough money. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this. And so I had like a lot of time to think about it. But I think like, I've got to say, props to John Scarpius, who was a production designer and also the costume designer. Because he brought like so much visual style to it in terms of like we went to like this shop called Reverse Garbage in Sydney, which is just like where everyone's like crap. Like I found a giant ear there once.
Okay, like a secondhand prop store?
It's almost like, like refuse material gets dumped there and fabric. And like if you want to find something weird in Sydney, like you go to like, you got to go there. If you ever go to Sydney.
I'd love to, frankly.
It's your first stop.
I've been wanting to go. I want to go before the Great Barrier Reef goes away.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it's
I
like
would
TikTok.
jump on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, so we like kind of like went there and we like just found, we were like looking through all this kind of refuse material and being like, okay, the cult should be yellow. And like then we found some shower caps that were yellow. We're like, perfect, that's this. And then we like found these little metal things and we're like, okay, this is the cult's sign now. And so it was really amazing in terms of like building the world and getting that kind of thing, because obviously, there are lots of different types of cults.
Yes,
but
the
really
yellow and white is so effective and so consistent through all of the different levels of it. Where was it filmed, by the way?
Yeah, it was filmed in Annandale and Sydney.
Okay.
For the most part, it was actually in a I think it was like Studio 401.
Oh, you were on studio.
Yeah, actually, I splurged on like getting a photography studio just to get those like crisp cult whites.
Oh, so that's what that was. Okay.
Yeah, I was actually like looking. I was like
Very
looking at all
effective.
these churches, and I was like asking all these churches if I could film at their church, and they are just like, so like, what's the thing about?
Yeah.
And I was like,
is it gonna make us look
it's
bad?
About a cult. And then it was like, okay, this conversation has been shut down. So like it was like really hard location scouting.
That.
Yeah, to be like, hey, like, give us a really, student rates, blah, blah, blah. And then it was like, oh. So, yeah, it was really great to have that photography studio.
But you had experience location scouting and everything at this point, because this isn't your first rodeo, obviously, but this is probably the one that's going to get the most eyes on it.
Yeah, like I think with Facon, definitely I did a lot of location scouting, just in terms of like, it was in my house, and then it was kind of filmed around the area that I lived in near my parents' house called Hundreds Hill. And so like I kind of picked out certain places. I didn't do all the location scouting in Facon, but I did get quite a little experience of that.
Okay. So then, how did you get so funny? Did you do improv? I mean, like your script, like as somebody who has also written like dumb little skits, for YouTube and my friends back in high school and stuff. You like, I tried to look back. It's like, oh, obviously she has an improv past, or obviously she's done sketch comedy. Nothing that I could find on your website. So where does this come from?
Where does it come from? No, I have never really done improv except for like in high school kind of thing. But I think as well, it's just like having really funny friends. Like I've always had like hilarious, over the top kind of theatrical, dramatic friends, and I think just
that
like
riffing
with them,
okay.
like really absurd people. I've like shout out to Maddie Stewart and Olivia Mayberry, and also Alicia Leach Amos.
Okay.
And they're just like such funny, wacky people, and like that's just kind of like what I write is often from real life and like funny scenarios, and that kind of like I feel like the voice that I'm like trying to captivate is so much bounced off these like very funny women and funny men as well. But yeah.
So funny enough that you can bounce ideas off them, but not so funny that you'd give them co-writing credits.
Yeah, like
shout outs, but
shout out,
special
but
thanks.
That's all you're gonna get. Yeah.
Was this the first film you directed, or had you done any? Okay, so what did you learn from that experience?
My God, so much. Yeah.
Like what's some of the biggest things that you were not expecting or prepared for, but you learned a lot from it?
Yeah. No, it was like I'd always like wanted to direct, and then I think I'm like a bit of like a scaredy pants in that sense, where I'm just like, oh my God, it's too many people. I don't know.
It's a lot of people.
And like, just being a bit like, oh, I don't want to like yell at everyone. So
you have a good first AD for that.
Yeah. And I think that it was such an amazing experience, and like it was something I wanted to do early in my career, because I didn't want to like get to the end of my career and suddenly be like, hey, I want to direct, and be like, oh, well, you got no background in that. Like, so
that's a theme that I've seen with a lot of my other guests, is that you don't wait
Yeah.
You don't wait until someone else comes to you with an opportunity.
Totally.
You do it. If you want to be a director, don't wait nurturing all the other things that you already do.
Yeah.
Just go do it.
Yeah, because you'll wait your entire life.
And you'll learn more than you ever will from reading books about it.
Yeah, totally. And I think, there's definitely like there's such a thing like I think in Australia you're really like because there's the funding is so hard to get, and like it's so important that you just like do it. Like you don't like kind of wait around. Like so much is like I know so many people who put so much of their own money into making their career happen, and it's like so much props to them because they come they get so much out of it, but it's like they really put so much of their life and finances on the line to make their dreams happen. And I think that that's a really good way to do it, even though it can get you in a lot of debt. But
so what's your dream? It seems like you hit them all.
well,
No, but
I've done them all.
Wave a magic wand. Where are you going?
You know what? I would love to be a showrunner. Like,
Okay.
That would be amazing.
For a drama or a comedy or anything they'll give you?
You know what? Yeah, anything they'll give me, honestly. I would love to be a showrunner, and I would also love to be like an indie filmmaker, kind of like making stuff on the more art house. I've got a bit of like a thing where when I started out, I used to do like my short films were for comedy. Like I was like, okay, film, I'm all about comedy, and theater, I'm into like the darkest possible stuff I can explore.
Okay.
So I had like, very like dark, like fucked up plays, and then but like to keep the branding kind of consistent, I was like, okay, but just funny comedy things.
Yeah.
But they're starting to like bleed a bit more into each other now, like because I feel like I'm getting older, and I'm like, you know what, these like plays that I've written, they should be maybe features.
And also, I feel like just the world is kind of adapting to a like more amalgamated form of comedy drama. Shows like BoJack Horseman or Shameless. These shows that bridge the gap between literally like crying laughter to next beat, really hard-hitting, grounded drama. So I feel like the time is now for something like what you're bringing to the table. That's really exciting.
Yeah, I think Jordan Peele, like I got a lot from his career is amazing in terms of his like, I'm funny dude, and then suddenly it's like, no, I do horror.
And
like,
there was no like real transition moment for him. It was just, here I am now, Jordan Peele, the comedy guy, here I am.
Yeah.
And that's risky, but it worked.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's because it all had to do with the movie. If the movie wasn't good, then no one would have cared.
Everyone would
but
just be like, why did you do that?
now he's king of the world.
Yeah.
Except I guess Dwayne Johnson's making more money, but
well, it isn't about money.
exactly. Yeah.
It's about the art.
Yeah. And if he's happy, then I'm happy.
Yeah.
Well, that's great to hear. It's awesome to have you here. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the movie today, Climax from 2018, when we come back.
The Gory Days.
Welcome back to the Gory Days. Kyle Leone here, your host for another week. My guest today is Felicity Pickering. Her short film, Toni Fitzgerald's Cult Following, I got it, is currently making the film festival circuit, and our movie today is Climax from 2018, 2019, I guess, technically. I mean, all of the websites say that 2018 because it technically came out in Cannes in 2018. That was its first official premiere, but its first premiere in the United States was March 1st, 2019, and if you're listening to it now, that was 5 weeks ago. So it's okay if you haven't seen it yet, but if you have any intention of doing so, this is the last warning I'm going to give. Major spoilers ahead. So if you were here to just listen to Felicity's first half, then by all means, don't listen anymore, and I won't take it personally. But if you're here for Climax, here we go. How do you pronounce his name? Gaspar?
You know what? I was like so nervous about that
figure.
coming in. Let's just like, have a note. Like Gaspar, no?
No?
I feel
Let's
like
say no.
We are like nuanced enough in French. Do you speak
No,
French?
no, I don't.
Okay,
but
yeah.
like, I feel
I was
like
like, thank God.
because I don't, but I made sure to phonetic the awards that he won at some of these other festivals, and I realized I missed his. So the film is Climax. It's directed, written, and produced and co-edited by the director, writer, Gaspar Noé, who has done Enter the Void was the last movie that I saw. I haven't seen anything else by him. Have you seen anything else?
I just saw, oh my God, Irreversible.
Oh, did he do that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I actually, in preparation for this,
Okay.
I went and saw Irreversible, and I can tell you it's amazing as well. So,
When did that come out?
I think
Was it the
quite
last
a
one
while
before
ago.
this?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's heartbreaking.
Yeah,
I'd heard a lot about it, and then I finally got around to watching it, and I was like, whoa.
If it's anything like this or Enter the Void, like there's some common themes in his brand. But before that, I want to ask. So you brought this movie to the Gory Days, and I wanted to ask, what's your relationship with it, and why this movie, and why this director?
Yeah, I saw it a couple of weeks ago, and I could not shut up about it. Like, I feel like at my workplace, they're just like, stop with this Climax film. But it's just amazing. Like,
How did you hear about it? I haven't seen any posters or trailers or anything.
Yeah, you know what? It's funnily enough, it like was on my Instagram feed,
Oh, okay.
and I was like, I sent it to my fiance and was like, hey, we gotta like go see this, and he was like, the director, like rah rah, and I was like, no, I'm in, let's go see it, and I'm so happy I did because it's suddenly become like a huge inspiration to me and really amazing.
I'm really happy you brought it to me too, because this is a movie that I will be completely honest, I would never have gone to see in theaters. I never would have seeked it out. The showtimes were extremely difficult to make. I had to skip work. I had to ask work.
Such commitment.
And I was honest. And if she's listening right now, my supervisor gave me like, yeah, no, absolutely, go for it. I said, hey, I have this opportunity to see a movie for my podcast that's in theaters, unfortunately, right now, and so I need to go. It was showing at 5:00 in Culver City, and so I drove down there and I saw it.
Yeah.
And the theater was virtually empty. I made sure to go on just like media blackout. After you said the title of the film, I looked up showtimes and nothing else. I didn't want to read synopsis. I didn't even want to look at a poster. Like nothing. Everything's a spoiler. Yeah. And I'm really glad that I did because it made the viewing so much better. So number one, I'm glad that you brought it. Number two, this is probably the most difficult movie I'm going to cover on this podcast. Like thematically, just like structurally, it's a very difficult in every sense of the word film. And we'll explain all of that. And then, So when I got there, the theater was virtually empty because it's an art house film, and so I didn't realize that either. I just thought, it must be just leaving theaters because there's only one showtime per day. So the movie Climax by Gaspar Noé is unique. It takes place during winter 1996 within one location, which is awesome. A single building, and features a large ensemble cast, bogglingly large, 24, portraying a French dance troupe, 24 dancers throwing an after party after a rehearsal. But the celebrations take a dark turn when everyone becomes increasingly agitated and confused, and the group begins to suspect that their sangria has been laced with LSD. So I'm really glad I didn't read that, because that would have colored everything. I would have been looking for stuff like there's that opening bit where there's a lot of characters here.
Yeah.
The like Slavic guy with the tracksuit.
Who's
who's like the total womanizer and keeps bragging about how he slept with everyone there.
Is it David?
Is it David? Thank you. Yeah, it's David. Yeah, David's going around and offering people drinks, and various people are saying no. And it's like, if I had known that, it's about LSD, I'd be looking for that the whole time. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know anything at all. So like, I try to keep an open mind with movies like this because I never know what's going to happen, and I'm at the mercy of what the director wants.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I have to do, like I said, this is difficult because I have to do this in two steps. I have to talk about it remembering nothing of like remembering that I didn't look anything up and how I experienced it, and then I need to go back and examine like, this is actually how the film was structured. So like when it's an opening shot of pure white, and a woman comes from the top of the screen, and it takes your mind a second to realize I am pointing down and this woman is walking forward. It starts right from the very beginning of a point of like, I don't know who this person is. I don't know what I'm looking at. Like, the mind demands something to grab onto as an audience, and he just refuses to give it to you. And then when you think he's finally going to, it's this like terrifying cut of there's a couple of them of the VHS like digital tear things, and these quotes that he puts up in French. Man, they're all over my notes, but he has these quotes that cut straight to the shot of the TV and all of the interviews. And that's where we meet all 24 of the people. And those interviews are so great.
Yeah, so amazing.
So when you signed up for this film, did you look up any of that? Did you know any of the synopsis and stuff?
I think all I'd seen was maybe like the opening dance number, and so and it's an amazing film in terms of like the marketing of it. Like you could be like, oh, this is gonna be like a fantastical kind of dance movie.
Oh, really? Oh.
And it's so amazing where it goes. Like I obviously love it.
So if anything, I guess it won't be difficult structurally because the movie kind of, I thought about that while I was watching that and I was like, oh, this will be easy because it's just boop, boop, boop.
Yeah.
So the first, it's typical 3-act structure. You have opening stuff, you have some kind of climax that leads to all is lost and then falling action. Climax. So the first half of the movie or the first third of the movie is them doing this amazing dance routine that is one 12-minute or more cut where they do the fully choreographed dance and then still without cutting go to the after party and swinging around to these incredibly difficult, I have to imagine incredibly difficult choreography, not just dancing but stage blocking and making sure they're not bumping into the cameraman or stepping on each other's lines because this movie is freaking improvised. There was a 5-page script that detailed some of the big beats, but they didn't even know how it was going to end. In that initial script, Selva was supposed to end up with a guy, and it was just them talking throughout the production, taking moments and going, hey, what do you want to do? How do you want to go crazy? And they go, oh, I want to do this with that person. And then they'd go over and ask that person, they want to do this to you. Is that okay? Do you have any ideas? And it's this collaborative environment that sounds like a dream come true. This movie was made so quickly, 4 months. He has the idea in November of 2017, and it's filmed, and it's cast in January, filmed in February, and it's out at Cannes in March.
It's crazy.
How long did it take Tony Fitzgerald cult following? How long did that take? Because that's a 12-minute short, right?
Yeah.
This is an hour and a half.
Yeah, I know. It's so much longer than this masterpiece here. It took maybe 2 years of finding people and coming up with the idea and making the money. So it's funny.
I don't know what kind of drugs you have to be on to
I heard that
motivate yourself.
Gaspar also let Sofia Boutella name herself as Selva. It was her,
I did not know that.
It was her grandmother's name, and she was I really, it was a very collaborative environment where he actually went out and found the best dancers in France and also out of France, and he then rewrote the script.
Okay.
With the people that they'd cast. Which
right.
It's just amazing. You can kind of. It's such an amazing film in terms of the people are so natural and I'm not sure that no one's a professional actor, I think, except for Sofia Boutella.
Except for apparently two, Sofia Boutella and Suella Yacoub, who plays Lou, the pregnant woman who doesn't drink but still suffers an emotional breakdown throughout the whole thing. So there's these two characters who are essentially our touch points. Selva, who you could argue is the main character, but it is really an ensemble movie, and Lou, who is the other. So there's the main troupe. Mm-hmm. There's a DJ who's Daddy, played by Kitty Smile.
Yeah.
There's the I don't know what her title is, but it's Tito's mom. What is her role in regards she makes the sangria? Is she their agent? Or?
Yeah, I feel she might be a producer. She's on the on the sidelines.
Yeah, she's not a dancer. She's the only one there that doesn't dance. But she's there making sangria for the rest of the group. So they've been there for 3 days, I think was the thing.
Yeah.
It's a 3-day intensive.
And they're going to do a tour of America.
Yeah, so they've been rehearsing with this amazing choreographer and musician, Daddy and Selva. The two of them are it's mentioned in the opening interviews. It's oh man, the honor to work with you. And I remember watching that and I was who is it? Who's the
Who
recorder?
are you guys?
And it took me a while watching. I was well then who was it? I kept thinking, is there some shadow person that sent these people to this building just to experience a nightmare. But no, it's Daddy and Selva were the ones doing those interviews. They choreographed this amazing routine, and they're just gonna have a party afterward. And it's in France, and it's in winter, and it's snowing outside. It is freezing conditions, and they're in a school, I guess. So our two actual actors are Selva and Lou. Everyone else in the movie is people with no experience in acting. Obviously, tons of experience in dancing, and all the different styles too. Like I don't know, are you a dancer or do you have any background in that?
Nothing at all.
Me neither.
Yeah.
My sister does. She does ballet, tap, hip hop. I think that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
That's a lot. But yeah, there's just something about like with each individual dance style, there's so much personality that comes from the individual, and also just like cultural significance from whatever that like dance comes from. The contortionist, the guy who's like bending his arms and like spinning them around and stuff. Which character was that? I can't remember. Was that Emmanuel?
It might be Emmanuel. I'm not sure. I was actually just gonna check out like there's a French style of dancing where they do a lot of like movement around their head. Like
where there was a lot of that.
There's like some amazing dancing in there, and like I feel like French electro is such like its own little scene, and
there's
such great music in it.
Oh yeah, the music. So the dancing aside, each individual dancer is phenomenal, and I frankly want to look them up, like and see more of each of them. The mid credits thing where they show all of their names in various styles. I couldn't find anything in my research, but I wanted to know, did they each get to design their own name? Because a lot of them look really personalized, and some of them look like logos almost.
Yeah.
The music in it. During the opening credits, it's very different from traditional films where the end credits are at the end. This one is much more like older films of the 50s and 60s where they front end the entire opening credits. And in it, there's this wall of music credits that just happens, and it's almost like hard to piece out just the way it's formatted. Like there's a Rolling Stone song in there that shows up at the very end.
Yeah.
And like I flew to my computer and looked at the soundtrack because I love all of those songs. And there were parts of the movie where I was like I wanted to dance. I wanted to get up and dance. Like,
totally.
Yeah, it's supposed to, obviously.
Yeah, I think what was really interesting about the film, which I also really liked, was that like I felt like at the beginning of it, it made me go like, God, I miss partying. Like I miss like going to these kind of things and dancing and being with like eccentric people and doing that. And then by the end of it, I was like, thank God I don't do that like anymore. Yeah,
if there was any part of me that was curious about LSD and wanted to try it, I don't ever want to try it because it's obvious that like it affects people extremely differently. Some people die from it. Some people kill from it.
It's just kind of like the worst hangover you could possibly imagine.
That never ends.
And it's just like that, like in the film, like it is like, it just kind of everything that a terrible thing that could happen in one night of partying happens. Yeah. And that's kind of like what makes it so powerful, because it starts out so optimistic and exciting, and like, you know, and I think it's so interesting because I think it's, as well, weirdly enough, like I feel like a lot of cults start out like that, where it's like, it's amazing, it's free, it's all about no rules, and by the end of it, you know, everyone's like killing themselves.
Yeah, but, like even if it's the best intentions of like, oh yeah, we're doing this for positivity and stuff, the introduction of alcohol and drugs can destroy it all. So yeah, that's right. How the first part of it is all about them creating something, and then the second half of it is all falling apart.
Totally.
So like it starts with the interviews. It cuts to their dance, which is this 12-minute thing, and then it does this just bizarre, but you deal with it as an audience member, where they start just cutting. They just start cutting, and there's just black, and then they'll cut to another conversation, and then black, and they'll cut to Tito and his mom, and then black, and it's still Tito and his mom, and it's just like bizarre choices, but you deal with it because it's establishing their characters so much more than anything else. The two I was gonna say African American, but they're French, so the two black guys that are talking to each other that at first like. It seems really okay, like they're just joking around and stuff, and then it quickly like turns to they're joking about violently raping a person, and it's like I know there are people out there that talk like that think that's funny and think that's okay, and that's exactly what the movie is trying to do. It's trying to plant the seed that like these people aren't good already, and it's the fact that they're humans and people is keeping them good. But once you remove that, their true intentions are going to show. And so, like, I remember feeling like rumbles of like, I don't like where this is going. And he does it more. No, it's not safe. And that's one of the big themes is that, like, yeah, this is a creative, fun, collaborative environment with lots of people, and you still don't know anyone. And you still can't trust anyone, especially in an environment where everyone is so horny. And it's like, I think like 4 of the conversations are about wanting to have sex with other people in the room.
Yeah.
And like that in and of itself is not bad. It's not bad to be attracted to people, but in the environment like that where the dances are so physical and like it can't not get muddy when you're mixing in like personal relationships and that stuff with something as personal and naked and frankly egotistic as dance. Like the kind of confidence you have to do that kind of stuff, especially for like some of those characters. Like, I don't know, it's just like, I'm not a dancer, but I totally see the appeal and the freedom, and like how Riley says in his opening thing that like it's I get to be someone that I don't get to be anywhere else. Yeah. And that's so great. And there's even like some weird moments in those interviews too where it's like, would you do anything for your break? And
yeah, but
some of them are
couch
like
kind of vibe.
It's exactly it. It's exactly it. And like,
it's crazy as well in the film how I almost feel like it all builds up like it's going to be an orgy. Like there's going to be an orgy at some point.
That's definitely what it feels like.
And then it goes somewhere different. Like, there are aspects of that, but I felt like it was very much like that's where it's going to go. And then you kind of like has a shift. Obviously, we've already spoiled the film.
Well, you could make an argument that it does get to an orgy, just not necessarily a sexual one, just a chaotic, over-sensory orgy overload. But that's me getting artsy-fartsy.
Yeah.
But that's what we're here for. The movie is Climax. So the big moment is when they're drinking their sangria, and it's the longest cut of the film. It's 42 minutes. That sounds like nothing. It is 42 minutes. That is half of the film's runtime. Is the shot? I can't even call it a shot. Is the section of the film where everyone starts to suspect that their drinks have been drugged, and the first person they descend on is the only person who is the person who made the sangria, and she says, "No, it can't be me. I drunk it." So it becomes this mass hysteria thing. That it doesn't even make logical sense, but they're all screaming and they're scared of how they feel, and they're mad that they want to blame someone. So they blame the person who wasn't drinking or doing drugs, the one person who's just a straight shooter, Dom. I really liked Dom.
Yeah.
And they descend on him and they push him out, and that's when you realize that it's snowing outside. Like, we saw the opening shot or whatever, but we don't know how that ties into what we're seeing. So to see the freezing conditions outside, I remember gasping. I remember letting out a gasp like, oh my God, he's going to freeze out there.
And it's such like warm colors as well. Like all the interiors are so warm. And then to have that
it's
just
a party.
oblivion of white.
Yeah.
Is just so, it's so beautiful.
And that for me still isn't quite the moment where I was like, oh, I get it. I get what this movie is now. For me, it was Selva wanders back to the room. It's really cool the way like they show us those hallways so many times that I really do have a good idea of how this place is structured. Selva is tripping, and she makes her way all the way back to the bedrooms, I guess. Like it's a school that also has bedrooms, like a boarding school, I guess. When she finds Lou, who has been telling people she's sick. She's not feeling well. She doesn't want to drink. It happens sometimes. She reveals in confidence that she's pregnant, and she doesn't know whose it is. And that really fucking sucks. But what makes it so much worse is when Dom comes in, the black woman, and she's tripping, and there's just something about all of their performances that, like, I've, like, to a point, been each of them at various parties and stuff, and I feel like the more you've partied, the more this movie like really speaks to you. Like, if I was super straight edge, I don't think I would have enjoyed this that much. I think I would have been like, yep, that's what alcohol does.
That's why you don't do these things, kids.
So instead, when Dom comes in and she's like laughing, she's delirious, like you know she's upset, but she's laughing about it and saying like, you drugged us, you're the only one who didn't drink, you drugged us, you lying bitch. And then Selva inappropriately but she's drunk too. She's high too. Says she's pregnant. And Dom doesn't take that well. She knees her in the stomach and then kicks her a second time. And that was when I stopped taking notes. That was when I put my pen down and was like,
heart stopped.
I understand what's happening now, and I need to devote everything to what I'm seeing here, because that's where it all starts for me. That's where it just, the descent goes straight down, because she wanders out from there and begs people to help her, and instead they demand she kill herself. They crowd around her in that staircase and are screaming at her to kill herself, and so she stabs her stomach and she cuts herself, and those visual effects are, it's hard to talk about now.
So real. It's so hard to watch at times.
Yeah,
and,
there were a lot of times. Yeah. What were like? So that was the first moment for me that it's like, okay, well, what was it for you? Do you remember?
Yeah, I think that scene definitely is just like, wow, like these guys are fucked up, and like it's terrible. Like, you know, it's like that. It's kind of like a turning point, I guess, if you're gonna get like screenwriting.
Yes.
But I think that as well, like my favorite moment, like in a dark way, not in like a best way, is definitely like when Tito dies.
Yes.
Which is just, you know,
it's a visual, like,
it's, you know,
flip
this film will like gut punch you like 3 or 4 times, and it's just so hurtful every time. You're like, oh, but like Tito, who's like the little son, and it's kind of like people say earlier, they're like, oh, you know, this isn't a place for a child. Like, why did she bring her child to this party? Like, everyone's partying, and then
there's even not a throwaway line. You can't really say a closed caption movie has any throwaway lines, but one of them is about like I think Lou saying that she should have aborted him, or I'm glad that she didn't abort him. Some reference to abortion, and it's in loosely she's like hinting at herself. Yeah. And that Selva says it's nice to have the choice. So I was like, yeah, I guess so.
Like, yeah.
But Tito, it's like at every wedding you see where people are getting drunk, but there's still kids there, and so you'll see, you know, a bridesmaid who maybe has had a little bit too much playing with the flower girl or stuff like that. It's like that, and it seems totally innocent, and at the same time there is a point where he needs to go to bed, like this isn't appropriate, and he definitely shouldn't be drinking the sangria. And so when his mom sees that he's snuck out of bed and is drinking the sangria that they all know to be laced with LSD, she does what I imagine she believed to be the most responsible thing. Well, he snuck out of his room, so I can't put him there. I got to put him in a room that locks. And in her LSD stupor, she puts him in the electrical room and closes the box and tells him, don't touch those. Like, I remember walking out of it and being, at first my knee jerk was like, man, if they didn't set up that death so heavily, it would have been so much more impactful. And thinking about it now, they didn't beat me over the head with the fact that he's going to die. She did what she thought was best, to put him in a room. He probably was on LSD, because he talks about that there's cockroaches and there's something moving in there.
It's so frightening. It just reminds me a little bit of what's the film? The Seventh Sense?
Sixth Sense.
Sixth Sense. My God, The Sixth Sense, where the little boy gets locked and there's a ghost in the room.
Yes,
and he's just like screaming.
Oh,
and it's
God.
such a terrifying scene. It kind of reminded me of that scene, because this boy is on LSD, he's locked, he's cold, and he's screaming for his mom, and then she loses the key.
Mm-hmm. She loses the key.
Oh, and it's like so heartbreaking, and especially because, not to spoil it, but like all the lights go out and they go, Tito's dead.
Just like a joke.
You know, like, and they're like
Tito's
laughing.
Fried. Mm-hmm. And they're like, what about the music? That's the important part. And one of them goes, don't worry, I've got my ghetto blaster, while she makes her way back to the door and loses everything. And that's when she decides, I'm going to kill myself. I'm coming, Tito. And I think what's the most haunting thing about that is we still don't know if he's actually dead. I know we see the shot and you've resigned that he's dead, but the truth is that he could just be unconscious. Like, yeah, he could have been shocked and that could have ended it, but there's no proof that he died. But I know, right?
Oh my God! I gotta see it again. As well.
I want to see it again too. Like, yeah. So, one of the best performances for me is when Selva has her temper tantrum breakdown in the kitchen, where she wanders. I don't even remember where it is in the film. There's so many moments, but I think it's after the one woman gets her hair set on fire, which is another one where I wonder for a long time what happened to her, and you don't find out until a little epilogue at the end. But so I want to give a shout out to the actress Sofia Boutella one more time. Her performance as Selva when she walks into the kitchen and has her breakdown, she like has a dance breakdown. It's like come full circle where like the dances in the beginning were just as frantic, but had a place of like creation and I can still remember watching the dances, and as positive as they were, going like, oh, that looks kind of dangerous, and they look angry, and that looks like I don't want to get close to them. They're going to hit me or something. And it totally flips to like they're essentially doing the same dances after she wanders back in and what she's doing in that kitchen. But it's from a place of like, have you ever been there? Have you ever been in such a place like emotionally, anxiety, depression, whatever is happening to you, where like you just want to scream and writhe on the floor and just scream and get it all out?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
I was like long and short. Yeah.
Because I have, and like it's not as cathartic watching someone go through that as I imagined it would be. It is heartbreaking, and it's especially troublesome when like she puts her hands in her stockings and she's like, "This feels fun, and this is fun," and it's like, what a fun sensation. And then same cut, she goes from this fun sensation to I can't get my hands out of my stockings, and she's screaming again.
Yeah, it's like hard to watch in terms of like stuff you'd see at a party, and you would see someone and you'd be like, you're gone.
They need help.
It's not safe for you here anymore.
And when it's a whole building of them, it's terrifying.
It's literally like there's just no one there. Like I think that the only person who didn't drink, I think like Omar, who gets kicked out into the snow. Dom gets kicked out into the snow. He didn't drink, and then the pregnant lady, she's pretty much killed.
I'm pretty sure she dies in the snow at the end, because if she wanders out after the police show up, which super sucks.
Yeah, it's just like there's the kind of situation where you just want like a responsible adult there.
Yes.
And there's no one there.
And they're all equally dangerous.
Yeah, they're left to their own devices, and it's like almost like they're brought down to their very base urges. Mm-hmm. And
quite
it's
literally
like how horrible humans are, kind of. I feel like is almost a theme in the movie.
So like the film comes to its absolute climax during the climax. Hey, roll credits.
Yeah,
comes to a peak, a thematic peak when the camera. Gaspar's used this technique a couple times in the film at this point, but it's where he turns the camera upside down to, in my opinion, elicit a complete sense of chaos of me trying to make sense of what I can, because in a normal shot, like it would be halfway across the room and I could easily see everyone. Even in real life, like ideally I'd still be able to see everyone, but if I was on LSD and I was stuck in that mode and I had been dealing with everything up to that point, that's visually where it all comes together, is that it's just a writhing limbs, red, because the lights went out when Tito fried himself, and they're just the emergency lights or something, and all you can hear are people screaming and growling and like biting each other and having sex. There's people having sex right on the dance floor, and it's just absolute chaos that ends with David, the guy that we've like if he was our male lead, you could say, but he's just as despicable, gets his head smashed on the dance floor, and that's the cut. 42 minutes later, cut. And then the door opens, and it's a German Shepherd, and it's the police, and there's just this intense relief of just like, thank God it's over, and they've opened the door, and there's like a breath of fresh air, and it's like just what we needed. But oh, that's right, the camera's not upside down yet, but and it's just who's left, and that's when we get our little epilogue of how everyone ended up. Psyche is still dancing. She's still the one. She peed on the floor earlier, and I always wondered, was that real improv?
Yeah, I didn't even think of that.
But these actors are insane. It's so awesome what they did, and that this wasn't asked of them. It was their ideas. It was their collaboration. And so the three structure is that opening one, they're creating, they're having fun. The middle is absolute chaos that results in that climax. And at the end is this epilogue. So what do we learn from this epilogue? We learn who may or may not have died. We know for sure Dom froze to death outside. I hate that shot. Tito fried, most likely dead, but could have survived that. His mom killed herself with a knife across her wrist. I forget, what was the character's name? I can't remember.
Yeah.
David, brain damaged? I don't know. Does he wake up? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Okay,
I don't know.
so he got his head cracked in. The two lovers, obviously, they're okay. The Daddy and Riley, I'm so happy for them that they ended up okay, that nothing bad happened to them.
Yeah.
The woman with her hair burned, apparently, like, was just in the sink for the rest of the night dealing with that.
Just like blood everywhere, and her scalp, like,
Just
it's
fried.
crazy.
Dom is like on the table, like scream sleeping, like cry, like in the middle. Selva and one of the Belgian, she was Asian. It was the only Asian woman on the cast. Tiffany Au as Sila. Sila and Selva ended up together, which is nice. And then I don't know if I'm missing anybody else, but the big like wham moment is where we see Psyche in her bedroom, just cleaning things up, putting stuff together, putting her books away, and then she leans up and puts some eye drops in, like 5 drops of acid into her eye, which is a reference to a line earlier that I think Selva said, that like her roommate started doing acid and she had to get away from that in the eye.
Yeah, and she was like, Berlin's too much. Like,
Yeah.
I have to get away. And
That
it's
was
like,
it.
I felt like it was just such a funny like moment because I had so much compassion. Like, she was like, oh, I'm getting
Yeah.
away. Like, Berlin, I was too much drugs. Like, and it was just like, oh, good. She's like starting new. She's starting fresh. And at the end, you just realize
It was her.
oh, you're the bitch.
It was definitely her.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you go back and think, like, nothing really bad happened to her. She's still dancing at the end. And obviously she's doing more. So, like, her tolerance is super high. And she did it. And she doesn't care. And she's most likely still on it as she's doping up again. And it's one of the coolest shots as it fades out with her eye just on there, and that music that follows the Rolling Stone song Angie, as we're seeing all of the like epilogue vignettes. And then that last shot is upside down again, but turning right side up slowly as we zoom into the only authority figure that we're ever going to get in this movie as the world rights itself. And it ends.
such a film.
Oh, such a good movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, those themes of control and safety and fear, let's just start there. Control, safety, fear, the idea of being out of control in your own skin and not being able to I have to imagine that's what Dom is crying about, is all the horrible things she did that night before, and just like I've drunk. I'll be honest. I've drunk, and I've done. I've drunk.
What?
And I've done some drugs.
Are you over 21, sir?
Nothing super hardcore. Like, I'm not trying to brag or anything, but and I've been what people have called crossfaded, which is when.
Wow, I've never.
What do you
heard
call
that.
it? What do you call it? What's an Australian saying for when you're drunk and
When you're
high?
Drunk and high. I don't know. I guess it's just like
I've heard it as crossfaded because it's like a DJ.
cross-faded.
Yeah.
Maybe I've got to bring it back to Australia when I go back in a couple of weeks.
Because there's I don't want to be offensive, but there's an Australian term for when you're drunk, right? Like, it's not hammered. What is it?
Oh, there's so many.
Is it knackered?
knackered?
Or is that British?
I don't know. It's so like graphic, but it's like shit face.
Oh, there's shit face.
Shit face.
For sure.
Hammered.
Hammered is the one. Yeah, I've
This
heard
one's
here.
here.
Yeah.
I'm like,
So I don't know if you have, but
Yeah.
that's something that, like, I said it earlier, but it really speaks to me, is like just some of the physicality that they do, and just like oh, am I going this way? Am I going that way? Like I've been there, and so it's really easy to pine for that as you're watching it, and maybe if you're able to, like, even kind of rewire your brain to remember what it felt like to be there. But as I'll be honest, as a man, I've never felt an element of like fear or lack of control in a room of other people who are on various wavelengths of that. But I could easily see, being a different person and in a different environment, how that's obvious, how obviously I don't feel safe in that environment. That's good.
It's just
I don't mean to put you on the spot as a woman.
as a woman. No, yeah, I think that's always kind of frightening, is that you gotta, like, at parties and stuff, you really gotta make sure you trust people there, especially if you're like looking, you're gonna get really drunk. You need to really assess, people's character. And I think that's what's so interesting. Like, I think that in my writing and in my plays, I think that I am always interested in, like, that base level of, like, can you trust this person, and, like, what are intentions, and, like, what would happen if under pressure. What are people really like?
Are you familiar with the Bechdel test?
I am.
I wanted to commend another compliment. I wanted to commend your writing for passing the Bechdel test. You have a number of independent female characters with agency that have extended conversations with other women that have nothing to do with men. And I think that's great.
Yeah.
This movie also passes the Bechdel test in many ways, but also fails in some.
Yeah. It's like...
There's a lot going on.
There's so much going on in the film,
So I guess before we move on to a different theme, I wanted to ask, like, what did that speak to you, that element of, like, oh, yeah, like, this is supposed to be a fun party, but they weren't safe before they started drinking. Like, there's always that element of, like, yeah, we're all on the same dance troupe, but I still got to keep myself safe. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know. Do you have anything, like, did that speak to you?
Yeah, I think as well, it's like group scenarios. Like, you've always got to kind of have your boundaries up and figure people out. I think it's really interesting at the end that kind of Selva, she hooks up with which character did she hook up in the end? I forgot the name.
Scylla.
Scylla.
Yeah,
and
Scylla.
It's almost like she's safe with another woman. That sounds really terrible, but like they kind of, nothing bad happens to Selva.
Mm-hmm. Nothing bad happened. That's right. That's the thing that the brother, so one of the dancers are brother and sister, and I could have sworn that the sister was trans, but maybe not. I kept expecting that to be a thing, because she keeps trying to get with one other male dancer there, and his brother is like, or her brother is like, you can't do that, and it's like, oh, he's just being overprotective. I thought the twist was going to be that she's a man, and that, I mean, she's a woman, but he's not going to enjoy that when he finds out. And so I thought that was the big thing. But no, it's that they're incestual. It's that they
yeah, it's crazy.
Way different.
And like at the end when it's like wakes up, he's like, please don't tell Dad.
Yeah, that.
And it's kind of this
that he raped her.
that that's happened before.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And it's like just a crazy, and like at the beginning he's really like controlling of her, and it's like, how far are you going with this guy, like and she's like, I'm 19, I can do what I want.
But that's the thing, is she gives off this air that it's like yeah, he's being overprotective, but I'm okay with that. This conversation is part of this process. But for it to go where it went, like, yeah, there is definitely a hint of like the drugs exacerbated this, but this has happened before. Yeah. There's some great, like, really grounded vignettes. In a movie with 24 people in it, there are some amazing, like, stories within the story that don't really have a ton of dialogue. Stuff like that. Stuff like Tito and all of that. So good that it never really focuses on any one person. The camera's just floating around the room.
Yeah.
Such
an ensemble piece.
Yeah. Such a rehearsing nightmare.
And amazing in terms of, like, a single location, like in terms of, I'm sure it did cost a lot of money, but in terms of just doing it in one location.
Oh, that's what I think about from a screenwriting perspective, is like when you're writing, you have to think of two things. You have to think of your creative contribution, obviously, and what you're writing, but you kind of have to be realistic and think how many locations, how many actors, how many props, like what, like car crashes, like what can I cut out to make my short film or student endeavor more likely to get made. So an idea that 24 non-actors, cha-ching, in one location, cha-ching, with multiple long shots that I don't know. Is that a cha-ching? Does that cost less or more?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm like kind of like it's harder to nail, but
it takes a lot more rehearsal, but a lot less like film time.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, we'll have to like research this and get back to you.
But one last thing I forgot to mention: the choreographer, McNeely. What is her name? The choreographer for this movie is Nina McNeely, and she has a quote here from a person or a magazine or something. I went on her website, and there's a quote that comes from Junkie.
Oh, I think it's Australian publication, actually. Yeah, go on.
Oh, that's funny. Well, Nina McNeely says, quote, "One of the film's first scenes is the only actively rehearsed part of the film. A 5-minute, one-shot, 21-dancer spectacle that shits on anything ever seen in Step Up. Some people say it's my best scene ever," says Gaspar Noé, "but I'm not really responsible for it. I enjoyed being behind the crane. But thank Nina." Which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Because...
that dance scene, like, as well. It's just like, I've been watching it over and over again.
Yeah, I want to go back and watch it.
It's as well. It gets better with I think it gets better with time as well in terms of like after you've seen the film.
Because there's so many different people to look at.
Oh, like it's such a showcase of their talents and their individuality.
Yeah.
And, it has such, when you see the horrible things that happen to each one of them, it's, you get more of a appreciation almost.
Yeah. I was fascinated to hear that the interviews were a late addition, that originally the movie was everything except the interviews, and the line producer was the one that said, hey, we should have them talk more, so let's insert some stuff for the home movie release that they decided to just put in the film, and it's necessary.
Yeah.
I would not care at all about these people in this dance room without that one-on-one individual meeting them and knowing their dreams and stuff, which was also improvised, those interviews, which is insane. Like, as a writer, it's frankly insulting.
Yeah, you gotta wonder if he won a screenwriting award, to be like, oh, I gotta be honest with you guys,
It's just crazy. He has an idea in November, and the deadline for Cannes is March, so he does it.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I love about the film that it's so proudly French. It kind of opens on the French flag, and it's I gotta.
It's multilingual.
I love that about France, not French people, is that they are so proud, and there's such this culture of we don't care if it's not commercially successful. It's about the art, and it's about our culture being shown.
I think it's something that we miss out on, and maybe you have some kinship in Australia as a younger nation too, that it France has a history that goes as far back as how far does France go back? I don't want to embarrass myself, but way further back than 1776, or when was Australia founded?
1770. Oh my, 1770.
1770.
Oh my God, if someone calls me up and is Felicity, get to know your shit, I'll be like, oh my God, I'm sorry.
So about six...
I swear I paid attention in history.
That's so fascinating, because when you say history, it's American history, obviously, but no, it's Australian history, starting at 70.
Yeah.
And then we showed up in 1776. And look where we are now.
Oh, but I should preface that, of course, 1770 is not when Australia started. Of course, indigenous people were there for 50,000 years.
Of course, which you have to be respectful
Captain Cook arrived on 1770.
Right, and brought all of the prisoners.
Yeah. No, that's yeah.
Sorry,
that's
all I know.
I was I had to catch myself there, because I was just that's...
The things I know about Australia are the Sydney Opera House, the Great Barrier Reef, Brekkie, and the horrible story of the poor woman who lost her baby to a dingo.
Yes,
everyone knows
dingo
about that one.
Ate my baby.
Yeah, but that's real. It's a national tragedy, and I read up on it, and it's no one believed her. She went around, and it was a whole thing of oh, no one believed her, and
killed your baby and decided to
and then she died, and they found the skeleton in
they found the dingo.
Yeah, with the baby.
With the baby skeleton in it.
But she was already dead, so it was just a posthumous thing? Is that the truth?
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems really distasteful to be a joke that people say.
Well, yeah, it was Seinfeld that, really did it.
Oh, a dingo ate your baby?
And it's someone actually died. You're
so we only have time for one last segment, and that is where we rate our movie. Once a week, we rate our movie on a scale of 1 to 5 thumbs, 1 being the best, 1 being the worst, and 5 being the best. What did you think of Climax?
I think 5 thumbs.
Really? All 5?
It's one that's going to stay with me for a really long time. And I think that that feeling of I felt physically ill coming out of it. And I like saw it on a Saturday night, which I feel like really helped the experience because it was just like, you know, like you're getting all ready for it. And it's going to stick with me. Yeah.
And then we typically award or assign our thumbs to characters in the movie. So who are you going to give your thumbs to?
I would definitely...
You can spread them out or you can give all 5 to 1.
A whole 5 to 1. I think Psyche, as a character, I both hate her and I love her so much. I think she gets 5 thumbs for me. I'm like too good. I think Selva gets 4 thumbs.
Okay.
I like her as well.
So that's 9 thumbs so far.
Oh, right. So how much?
So it's like 1 or like 5.
Oh, I've completely misunderstood.
No worries.
So I'm like, I have 10 thumbs to give out?
You have 5
like
because you gave 5. You have 5 thumbs to give out. So you can give all 5 of those to one character, or you can give 1 to 1. Yeah.
I think I'll give all 5 to Psyche.
Cool. I think she deserves it.
She deserves it.
I love those moments where her like girlfriend is trying to get her attention and she's just so over her. And she's like, you're just boring.
Yeah,
but it's like because she's watching what she's done. Yeah, like she's observing, and it's
I love the dance scene where she just does not give a fuck, and she's just like in a bikini, and she's like she's not the best dancer of all of them.
No, but
you're just so like. You're very interesting.
And she's tall, too. Like, she demands the attention.
Germanic.
Very pale, too.
Yeah.
And that hair, that white hair, very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
And,
me?
And yourself? I was like...
So, yeah, Gaspar Noé's Climax. I loved Enter the Void when I saw it, that, like, drug trip idea. But this is so much different. It is still about drugs, but in that way, like, the film isn't attempting to elicit what it feels like to be on drugs. Instead, it's more of like a documentary, just like a fly on the wall, what is happening to these people as they each descend in their own way and face their demons, either inwardly or outwardly. And so just like on paper, I love that. I didn't know about any of this going in, so it's awesome to have seen it. I am going to give... the music is amazing. The dancers, each individually, are fantastic. Whether I love or hate them, are amazing. Tito, I could take or leave.
He's dead now.
Child actors, it's
goodness.
so hard to put. Like, a child actor has to really be like pushing it for me to not remember that they're a child and there are 50 people on the other side of this camera that they are trying their hardest not to look at, and it's just so with all of that, with the visual effects, with the 40-minute camera shots, which, like, any movie that has long camera shots, that's my bread and butter. I love long camera shots. It's like watching a play. I'm going to give this movie 5 thumbs as well. Yeah, that's right. And I'm going to, let's see, the last movie that I gave 5 thumbs to, I think was, did I give A Quiet Place 5 thumbs? I don't think so. I think I gave that 4 thumbs. I gave Society 5 thumbs, and I'm giving this one 5 thumbs. And I'm going to assign my 5 thumbs. One of them is going to go to the German Shepherd that shows up at the end and barks us all back to reality. Oh, God, when you said, like, yeah, this is one that sticks with you, like, I talked to the other 2 people in the theater afterward, and I was like, do you guys want to talk? And they said no, but
you tried.
I tried because I was like, I need someone to talk to about what I just saw. I'm going to give, let's see, that's 1 thumb. I'm going to give 2 thumbs to, I can't remember her name. Is it Emmanuel? No, Emmanuel was a man. I'm going to give it to Tito's mom. Tito's mom is going to need those thumbs more than anybody. She was amazing. And the last, let's see, so that's 1 thumb, that's 2 thumbs, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to give my last 2 thumbs to Daddy, because he's so big and huggable and nice, and he didn't do anything to anyone. The worst thing he does is Selva comes over and is like crying and begging him, help me, what's happening? And he just goes, ew, get off me, I'm dancing. It's like,
he's
I've
a
been
great
there.
character.
He's so good.
Yeah.
He's so, like, just real and honest, and all of his conversations are so great.
Huggable.
Yeah,
Super huggable.
It's very huggable. I would love to meet him in real life. I'd have to learn French probably, but
Kitty Smile, he's actually got some music that I really like.
I'll have to check him out.
Yeah,
I imagine he was just like everyone else was really dancing. He was probably really DJing there.
Yeah.
Really cool. So that's the movie Climax. Felicity, thanks so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. You're welcome to come back anytime.
Yeah.
Where can people find you online if they're interested in seeing some of your work or watching the shorts?
Yeah, I guess www.felicitypickering.com, just like an online portfolio. And, hopefully my film will get in somewhere.